Alibaba Perseus Pro 4 clone for under $30? Well, given the love you all gave to my last video on the Alibaba mod clone, and all of the comments asking for the Pro 4 clone review, 𝘰𝗺𝗶𝗶𝗹 is coming through with another comparison and review video. Of course, I also grabbed the original Joola Perseus Pro 4 so I can judge the quality of the clone. It costs almost 10 times more. If you're interested in checking out the Alibaba clone I got, I'll leave my affiliate link to the specific seller I purchased from, which had the most positive reviews I could find. If you purchase with this link, I do receive proceeds to help support the channel. Both the clone and Joola Pro 4s were purchased with my own money. I was not asked or sponsored to do a review, so this review is 100% my own words. I do want to caution any potential buyers that due to the recent tariff uncertainty, I have noticed both the shipping costs rising and import charges being added since I purchased the clone. I have no way of predicting which direction these will go, but so far they have only gone up since I've started tracking, so keep that in mind as you're deciding when to purchase. One of the most respected paddle reviewers, John Q, recently discussed Alibaba clone paddles and said this interesting statement about them, which really inspired me to try something completely new for this paddle review.
Right, so this is a 14mm Perseus, legitimate one, and this is a 16mm knockoff.
Close.
Super close. And honestly, it plays really similar too. You got to play with it today. I played with it before my foot injury, and I enjoyed it. It was nice. Nevertheless, I don't think anybody could play with each of these and differentiate them.
Cannot differentiate them, he says. Well, I decided to put them to the test. I invited two of my regular pickleball buddies to do a completely blind playtest, where I covered up any distinguishing features of the paddles, and had them try both the clone and the real Joola Pro 4, and have them guess which one is the real. The results is shocking. But first, let me compare the look and the specs of the two paddles. So here I have the original Joola Perseus Pro 4 16mm on the left. On the right is the Alibaba clone underneath the free paddle cover that came with it. The first thing that you'll notice is that the Joola logo does not appear on the clone. And in fact, the Joola logo doesn't appear anywhere on the clone because the manufacturers are not allowed to use the Joola branding on their paddles. Other than the missing Joola logos, you can also observe that the fonts used for the graphics are also a little bit different, but if you haven't seen the Joola one up close recently, you would probably not be able to tell the difference. What's interesting about the clone is that it also replicates the NFC chip logo, which I'll show later that the clone definitely doesn't come with in the handle. The clone also has a USAP approved logo, which it definitely isn't since approvals are based on manufacturer. You should not be taking these clones into sanctioned tournaments, but rec play is perfectly acceptable. I do wish the manufacturers of the clones would not include these deceiving logos for the sake of graphical accuracy, since they already removed the Joola logo. Another interesting thing is that the Ben Johns signature on the Joola Pro 4 is a little holographic and looks different depending on the lighting compared to the clone. The clone signature stays the same regardless of how the light hits it. The Joola branding is also removed from the edgeguard graphics on the clone, and the fonts are off, but otherwise looks somewhat believable. Finally, the Joola logo does not appear on the butt cap of the clones. The first thing I noticed about the surfaces of both paddles is that the grip both looked and felt different. You can feel and also hear that the clone seems to have a smoother surface. I did confirm that the measurements of the Pro 4s and the Alibaba clones are identical, and when you layer them on top of each other, there's no discernible difference in the shape. The reported average stock weight of the Joola Pro 4 16mm is 8.1 ounces, and when I measured it, that's exactly where it came in at. As for the Alibaba clone, it came in at 8.0 ounces flat, which is basically within measurement error. And they had identical balance points, which means their swing weights should be almost exactly the same. Another thing I want to note is that the Joola Pro 4 grip circumference definitely feels more thick than the reported 4.25-inch circumference, whereas the Alibaba clone feels closer to a 4.25 inch circumference and fits much better in my hands as I prefer smaller grip sizes. This is similar to the experience I had with the 𝘂𝗺𝗻 clones versus the real 𝘂𝗺 mods as well. I also checked to make sure that the Joola NFC chip worked and that the Alibaba clone does not actually have an NFC chip inside. Again, I'm not a fan of the fact that the clones have the NFC chip logo, as it's very deceiving. I also run a sound test to check how the core sounds when it hits the ball. The two Pro 4s sound very similar, and both are not as deep sounding as the mod clone, and definitely not as deep sounding as the Core Crush mod clone. Now let's take a look at John Q's X-ray images of the Joola and clone Pro 4s he had. Can you guess which one is which? Well, it turns out the one with cleaner looking cells was actually his clone, to my own surprise. John Q doesn't share where he got his clone from, however, so I don't know how similar it is to the clone I got. I'm working on getting X-rays of my Alibaba and Joola Pro 4s in addition to my Alibaba mod TA15 clones for a 1000 subscriber special. Pretty interesting to hear that they both liked the same paddle and automatically assumed that it was the Joola paddle, even though it was actually the Alibaba clone. This really speaks to Joola's branding and reputation, and perhaps also to the negative reputation of Alibaba, even though in this case it's unfounded. After the blind playtest, I also decided to try out and compare the paddles. Even though I knew which one was which, I honestly forgot about which one I had as I played, because they played so similarly. It was immediately clear that they were both more powerful than my main paddle, the J2K+, but they still had reasonable sweet spots and control for me to hit my soft shots. If you forced me to pick a paddle, I would probably also pick the Alibaba clone because it had the best power to control trade-off. It felt a bit more powerful and poppy without sacrificing control. I did test the deflection speed from speed-ups with a slow-mo video, and confirmed that it did deflect the ball slightly faster. I would caveat though that the difference is really small and has more to do with your technique and speed of the incoming ball, since there were also examples where it was slightly slower instead.